Now we're going to start working with the Mediator design pattern, and this design pattern lets you mediate between the parts of your program. That's what it's designed to do. For example, say you have a website that is set up as a commercial store. You might have a welcome page, a store page where people can browse items, purchase page where they can purchase items, a goodbye page where they are told thanks for shopping. And you have all kinds of connections between the welcome page and the purchase page and the store page and the goodbye page as shown here. There's all kinds of connections going on, and so you have to be able to navigate from the welcome page to the store page, or perhaps even to the goodbye page if that's what the user wants to do. And those kind of connections all have to be hard-coded into your various pages, and that can be a difficult problem. So instead of handling all the navigation logic going from page to page inside each page, the Mediator design pattern says, why don't you use an object which is a mediator object, and lets you go from the welcome page to another page you want to go to using a mediator. That way these individual pages don't have to know about the navigation logic that is involved. Instead, they can just work with the mediator. So that takes the responsibility of navigation out of the individual pages and puts it into the mediator, which is what you want, because if you have, say, 24 pages, you don't want to have to implement navigation code in each of those 24 pages. Instead, you just want to have one object, if possible, to handle the navigation, and that can be the mediator object in this case. So that means that somebody going from the welcome page to the store pages goes through the mediator instead of having to build the logic in here that goes to the store page and so forth. So that's the idea behind the mediator. And in the mediator, you are going to remove logic that is otherwise duplicated in all your objects and just placed in one location that mediates between those objects. That's the idea. Instead of having interface code between objects in all your objects, which is difficult to duplicate if you had to maintain, especially if you have dozens of objects, instead you have a mediator object that corresponds to is the interface between all those different objects inside your program. So that's the idea of the mediator object, and we're going to see it at work in just a moment, and converting this kind of a situation into this kind of a situation, where you have just one mediator object that provides the interface between all the objects in your code, rather than having to duplicate that interface code in each of your objects, which is not a good idea. So once again, this is a code separation type of example, and extracts volatile code from the objects in your program into a easily modified single location. That's often the case with design patterns. That's often the logic behind the design patterns. You want to extract the quickly changing code and put it into one location where it's more easily handled, rather than spreading it over all the objects in your program. So next up, we're going to start coding this example and seeing how we can convert the store website to actually use a mediator object to move between location to location.